Okay, looks like we lost connection there for a second. And earlier we were on my personal side of my Facebook page. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but now we're back on the Faithletic side if you're listening. And we were listening to Dave Garrett, the current Thunder pregame host on the franchise and former play-by-play announcer of the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm going to try to reach him on the phone now. Hopefully we've got a new connection. Just stay tuned here just a second.
Hello there.
All right, you're live on the Faithletic, the podcast. Sorry about that little disconnection, Dave. We had a little bit of a technical issue. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can.
All right, awesome. I don't know why it does that from time to time, but it does. I'm certainly sure you've never dealt with that.
We live in a world of electronics.
Oh, no kidding.
The electronics are so good and so dependable, and we lean heavily on them. And sometimes we're no more than just a cellular few bits away from complete disaster.
Well, that's what happened there.
So nothing surprises me anymore. I just hope it wasn't from my end.
I don't think so. And somehow, I have a Faithletic broadcast side, and somehow that signal ended up on my personal page, and I still haven't quite figured out how that happened. So,
we're good.
Yep. So we were closing out on Eddie before we moved on, and I was bringing up the point that it was either the year that they were in the Final Four, or the year before where Eddie felt the team was soft, and he brought the tackling dummies in to use on rebounds underneath the boards to toughen them up. I don't know if you recall that or not. Yep.
No, I do, and had the players fitted for football helmets.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yep. He padded them up.
I'm not real sure they ever put all that on, but I think he probably got his point across.
Yeah, well, good for him.
Which was really his MO anyway.
Yep.
He just that's what he did.
Yep.
He just pushed the right button to get the result that he wanted.
Well, that one last comment, just my personal thing with Coach Sutton is he brought a lot of memories to watching OSU basketball, and I've never quite set right. I know I'm probably going to get myself in trouble by saying this, by the exit of the Sutton family. I understand that it probably had to happen for various reasons, but I don't feel like that it's. I think most people feel this way. It hasn't been the same since they've left, and I hope it gets there. I hope it gets back. It's one of my favorite things to watch Oklahoma State basketball, and hopefully they get there at some point.
Well, I went to Oklahoma State,
yes.
And I didn't finish there, but I went there, and I watched Eddie Half-Court Hannon hit his shot in front of Louisville from the second row of the bleachers at Gallagher Hall. And of course, I love Paul Hansen and Leonard Hamilton. I had a working relationship with him, but nobody matches Eddie. Maybe Henry Iba.
Yep.
But we weren't alive then, so we wouldn't know that. But nobody. It will never get back to that again. I wish the very best for Mike Boynton, and I think he's a splendid guy, and he's got a Sutton on his staff.
Yep.
But but to have every game, 13,000 line waiting for days, the coach coming by with pizzas or breakfast for some of the campers, I don't ever see Oklahoma State basketball ever getting back to that status again, and that not necessarily have to do with talent or coaching. It's just a sign of the times.
Yes.
Of the people that participate in basketball. It won't be matched.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it is. At least we have those memories of how well that went, and the excitement of watching them play, and knowing that every season, no matter what Eddie had, he was competitive, and you knew he was going to win. And I always got better at the end of the year. That was his trademark, I think, is they always got better.
Yeah. And you and I both are better people for having known Eddie Sutton.
Oh, agreed, totally.
There's an influence on us that wouldn't be there if we didn't have our encounters with him through the years.
Absolutely. So let's move to present day, and then we'll take a little bit more turn to the past. But you are now the host of the pregame show for the Thunder on the franchise, and of course the season has been shortened or cut short, or however you want to call it. I guess the first question I would be, before we move on about whether there's going to be a season or not, how well do you believe the Thunder were playing, and what were their chances at the time before the season abruptly came to an end?
Well, I don't think they had met their potential, and I think they just got better every game. And the NBA is a season of load management and players picking their spots. And I didn't see that with this team. I never saw them. Maybe there's one occasion where I thought they took the night off. They never took the night off. Maybe once in one of their really bad losses that they had. But I'm talking about point spread.
Right.
Point margin I'm talking about. I can't remember the game, but they just got waxed once, and I thought you didn't bring it to play. Mm-hmm. So they were going to get better all the way up to game one of the playoffs, and they were going to be in the playoffs as a 6 seed, maybe a 5 or a 4, but probably a 6, mm-hmm. maybe a 7. And if you're around those spots, you're not matched up against the top couple of teams,
sure.
and probably have a chance. So I like. Here's the deal. And this is probably a negative commentary about Russell Westbrook. They all bought into Billy Donovan, even Chris Paul, to the degree that Chris Paul's preaching Billy Donovan when he's out on the floor.
Sure.
And Russell Westbrook didn't do that.
Yeah.
Russell was, I won't say selfish, but very inspired to want the ball in his hands, mm-hmm. to take the winning shot or have it in his hands when they needed it most. And sometimes that doesn't work out real well. More times than not, I think Russell did well, but they certainly play more as a team with that old group gone.
Yeah, they just seem to play better, and they play that brand that Billy coaches. And I just, he doesn't have. It's kind of like I think about Eddie Sutton. They may not have the best players on the floor, but they had the best the players playing their best basketball, and that always gave you a chance. And
yep,
they're certainly doing it, or were doing it. So, do you, in your opinion, is there going to be a pickup to the season?
Yes.
Good.
It's going to happen in late June.
Okay.
And I don't know anything, mm-hmm. but I'm just, you ask and I'm giving the boisterous opinion.
Sure.
They're going to gather in Orlando or Vegas or depends on, some things could change with the COVID-19 between now even and the end of the month. In other words, there could be breakthroughs, negative or positive. But I think maybe we're all leaning more toward the positive. But they're going to play, and we're going to have a champion in 2020. And the NBA needs to have a champion on
sure.
the year that the virus hit.
Yeah.
It needs to make a statement, and there needs to be you knock this down, virus, but we're going to find a way to get a champion, because there needs to be a 2020 champion. Then, when they pick basketball up for 20 and 21, they're going to start Christmas, and I don't know that the NBA will ever move off that once they get to that point.
Really?
I think they're going to find out that they love basketball through the summer, and a championship in late July or early August when there's only baseball out there really professionally. And so I think you're going to see a facelift, shifting of the NBA. So, yeah, they're going to play. They're going to finish this season, and the Lakers are probably going to win it. But the Thunder, I think, have a chance to get out of the first round, and we'll see if that's here at home or on the road somewhere. But, yeah, they're going to play.
I hope that the Lakers don't win it, just because I'm just don't.
Me too.
Yeah.
I hope the Thunder wins it.
Yeah,
but,
I do too.
If you're in an NCAA winner-take-all one-game situation, the Thunder have a decent chance of winning it all. Seriously. Now, if you do best 2 out of 3 early series,
mm-hmm.
the Thunder have a good chance of pulling off an upset with a shorter series. If you get into 7-game series, and the NBA is not going to do that. They're not going to have every team play best 4 out of 7 from the get-go. They're going to have to do something to shorten it. But I think you'll see a final that is best out of 7. Maybe a conference championship, best out of 7. Everything else is going to be 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, tournament style, something different.
Yeah, I miss the old days when, the earlier rounds was 3 out of 5.
Yeah, Barry Trammell's done some great metrics in his columns in the Oklahoman and showing how upsets are more likely with shorter series. It's hard. It's hard for a team that's not better than that other team. It's hard for that team to fake it through a 7-game series. You just can't. That shows a true champion, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Same with baseball.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I kind of hope that they go just like a tournament format, but what do I know? Whether they do that or not, but I think we'll make it interesting.
I'll take anything.
Yeah, sure.
If they came out tomorrow and said we're going to play the first 2 rounds, 1 game, it's 1 game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fret about it. I'm not. I'm just going to go. I just want them to play.
Sure.
I like seeing sports on television and in person. So
me too.
I'll take it.
So, before we get away from the NBA and move to the NFL, what did you think, or did you see The Last Dance?
I saw the first couple.
Yeah.
And then I dipped into the third one, and I don't know if it's because I lived in that era and watched all of that happening and already knew that Reinsdorf and Krause were booed like they were, treated like they were.
Sure.
Some of that stuff was not intriguing to me.
Okay.
So I liked it. I didn't love it. It didn't show me really anything new. Maybe Michael Jordan agreeing to admit to everyone that he was a jerk sometimes.
Yeah.
And it did some things because it was all about getting that win.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of the getting Dennis Rodman out of his hotel room and Scotty and the secret suspension for his gambling problem and so on and so forth. I knew all about that.
Sure.
And so that wasn't entertaining to me. So I will tell you this. I will watch the remaining episodes that I didn't watch, but it just wasn't compelling enough for me to go, oh, my gosh, I got to get back to the television Sunday night to watch 9 and 10 or 7 and 8 for that matter. So I'm a fuddy-dud to ask that question to you because you're not rocking my world by all that video, and most of it was not a surprise.
Well, the funny end of that and this conversation is I didn't see the first few, but watched the last 3. So I just picked up where you left off. So
and we have to set our DVRs the right way. I guess. I just didn't. But I'll tell you this, and I turned 60 this year, and 60 was not a line of demarcation to make me feel any different because I feel as healthy as I've felt in a long time because I've had some horrible back issues.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's kind of been an energetic year, but I would admit to you that I'm not a diehard sports fan.
Really?
I've used sports to make a living, and I love, and I don't mean like, I mean love calling football play-by-play. Love it. It's as nirvana for me as practically anything outside of family love. But I've never been the guy to run home and after, let's say, calling the Stillwater Pioneers versus Enid or against Jinx or whatever back in the day, I wanted to hang out with friends afterwards and either party or goof off with them. But I didn't run back home to catch, did OU win tonight? Or nobody tell me the score. I'm videotaping this. I never have been a sports fan like that. So
wow.
Look at it this way. Would you do? And some people won't understand this, and I in the context
because you do it all the time.
Out there will get it'll get misunderstood.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's like the dentist that goes home. He doesn't go home to do his family's teeth.
Yeah.
They get an appointment and they go into his office during his working hours.
Sure.
So to prepare, let's say at the NFL level, to prepare 10 or 12 hours during the week to call a ball game on a Sunday with the travel and everything that's involved and the pressure to perform well. And certainly in my situation, I was kind of in an uncomfortable deal because Brad Chan was a long time, loved, excellent play-by-play guy, great storyteller. You know, I was taking his job. And so there were other pressures there.
Sure.
But after working all week long and being around those athletes and getting all these factoids and building your spotter board and getting to the game and broadcasting the game, it wasn't, I was the dentist going home and I want to rest or do something recreational, not click on and see who won Sunday Night Football between the Steelers and the Colts. I kept an eye on it, but
sure.
I wasn't and still am not. And then less now, the older I've gotten, less now, what I would call sports fan. I don't own autographs. I don't own sports jerseys.
Yep, I don't either.
I don't, you know, I've got a few recordings of me in my career, but I'm not a real big sports fan.
Well, it doesn't, once you put that analogy in front of me, I understand where you're coming from. It does surprise me a little bit, but then when you say it the way you do it, I get it. I mean, it makes sense. So.
Well, you know, I don't have a favorite NFL team. I like the Saints and the Cowboys because got to work for them.
Sure.
But I think it's funny that the Cowboys have not gotten back to the promised land since Barry Switzer left.
Yeah.
I think it's almost hilarious, especially the way he was treated back in those days. And it just so happens that he was the last coach to win a Super Bowl title for that city. So I don't, you know, I like Jerry Jones. I don't have anything against him, but I'm not enamored with every next word that he says.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I am a huge Thunder fan. Absolute sit in the stands, cheer, yell at the refs fan. And that's the first team, except for maybe the year after I left Oral Roberts, they had made it to an NCAA tournament, and they played Memphis in Calipari in the first round. And they played them really close for about halfway through the second half, and then it got blown out. But I yelled and screamed in that game, unlike any other. And I was a fan when my daughter played high school at Bethany, which you've broadcasted.
Yes.
And they both of my daughters, Allison and Alicia, comment of how sweet you guys were and how decent it was to be around you. So I have great appreciation for that. I am a sports fan for those very defined teams, but not a sports fan in general.
So, and Dave is referring to his time as the Dallas Cowboys, and just from a personal side, you know, I've been a Cowboys fan probably, you know, you and I are about the same age, so around the late 60s, Roger Staubach was my favorite player ever, and in fact, I've got one of his little replicas behind me here in my office.
Sweet. Well, he's deserving of anyone's praise. He's an awesome human being too.
Yes, he is. And but I was traveling a lot back in the mid-'90s, and I didn't get to see a lot of TV and didn't get to see a lot of the Dallas Cowboys play. But when I turned on and listened to the radio broadcast, it was Dave Garrett doing the play-by-play. So I still, and I think I've told you this before, you may not remember it, but I still remember you as the voice of the Cowboys beyond Brad Sham and all those guys. I can't remember who it was in the 70s, Vern Lundquist or somebody. Who was doing it in early 70s?
Frank Gleber.
Frank Gleber, yeah.
Heck, Chris Needham was the voice of the Dallas Cowboys for a little bit.
I did not know that.
Bill Mercer.
No, that's right, Bill Mercer, pro wrestling guy. Yeah. So, but I think of you, and every time I hear your voice, I think of Dallas Cowboy games, and I appreciate the fact that I have those memories. And you know, they won the Super Bowl one of the years that you were there, and or play-by-play. But tell us how you became the play-by-play guy for the Cowboys. I think people would be. I've heard this story, but I think it'd be interesting. for our listeners to hear.
I got to broadcast the Cowboys when I was 35. I won the Dallas Cowboys play-by-play job, though, when I was 19. And the story I tell is when I was a sophomore in college at OSU and wanting to be a great professional, this is what I suggest everybody do when they're in college. I took every single stinking job that Bill Platt at KSPI or Oklahoma State's athletic department would ask me to do. So I had my name in the hat to be a stringer, and a stringer was the person who gets the story after the game and strings, in quotation marks, the audio back to AP or UPI radio. Back then, we had Associated Press and the United Press International, or whomever would ask me to get comments. Well, I got assigned to do Bedlam, and my job was to get winning coach 2 comments after the game.
Okay.
On 79, Bedlam, J.C. Watts and Billy Sims were still part of the Sooners, and they came to Stillwater, and I think they led Jimmy Johnson's Oklahoma State Cowboys 31-0 at half. It might have been 31-7 at half, but anyway, they won the game 38-7. In other words, they screwed around in the second half, and Coach Switzer was angry with them. Well, I was Bob Berry's spotter on Oklahoma State's network, and I got stuck in the press box elevator on the way downstairs to get the post-game comments from the winning coach. So I missed Barry Switzer's press conference.
Oh, no.
So I'm devastated. And I'm a little 5'7", 120-pound, scared to death, naive goofball kid looking around Gallagher Hall, which we're a visiting team dressed in football season, looking around Gallagher Hall for the head coach. And Scott Hill, who was a Switzer assistant back then, I didn't know Scott. I later became really good friends with him. But Scott Hill said, well, he's around here, but he ain't going to talk to you. He's mad. You're not going to get anything out of him. So, okay. Well, that didn't mean anything to me because I had screwed up and I wasn't going to get his comment. So I start pushing doors open of rooms in that first northwest corner of Gallagher Hall. And I push the door open and Switzer is there urinating.
Oh, no.
In the men's room. And now you got to understand, in 1979, Barry Switzer was the most famous person in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure.
And bigger than the governor, bigger than any movie star, bigger than James Garner, bigger than anything Oklahoma's produced. So I see him in person for the first time at age 19. So he's standing there urinating, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he said, "Can I help you?" And, oh, gosh, sorry, Coach. So I shut the door and moved into the restroom, and he kind of recoiled a little bit. So I said, "My name is David Garrett. I missed your press conference. I need to send your comments to Associated Press. I know you're not in the best of ways right now. I don't even care if you give me no comment in my microphone, but I need to talk to you for 2 comments." And he said, "I've already talked to the media. Really, I don't have much to say." And I said, "I understand that, but," and I fell on the sword. I said, "I'm a naive 19-year-old, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. And this is a project that I've been assigned by the Sports Information Department. And the coach, you could save me if you would just give me a couple of comments." And he kind of looked at me cockeyed, and he said, "Why did you miss my press conference?" And I said, "Well, I was Bob Berry's spotter, and I couldn't get the next word out." He said, "You work for the rival network, and you have the gall to come down here and ask me to give you comments?" But he had this twinkle in his eye. And I thought to myself, he's going to give me these comments. He didn't know this, but he wasn't getting out that restroom door.
I'll bet.
There was going to be footprints up the middle of this kid, and they were going to say,
"Good for you."
He died of a shoe in the middle of his heart. But he wasn't going to get out of the room. So he does the interview, and I send in the comments. And I went back to my dorm room at Wilhelm at Stillwater, and I wrote a letter to him in handwriting. And I just said, Coach, you don't know me, but you helped out a naive kid who doesn't know what he's doing in this business yet. And I just wanted to tell you how thankful I am. I'm grateful. Thank you. Well, about 2 weeks later, there's a letter from Office of the Head Coach in my mailbox at Wilhelm. And I thought, oh, God, I hope he didn't write back and say, leave me alone. Or I opened the letter, and the letter read, Dear David, thank you for your kind letter. I've never been sent a letter like that before, yet I've always tried to please the media as best I can while taking care of my own team. Best of luck in your future. Sincerely, Barry Switzer.
Well, that's cool.
So that stayed on my bulletin board in my dorm room for forever.
Yeah,
I don't have the letter today. I wish I did, but at some point in all of my moves, it got lost. But later that year, Oklahoma State and OU were wrestling at at Lloyd Noble Center. And back then, wrestling was still a sellout.
Yep.
It was still, 11,000 people at Lloyd Noble and 6,500 in Stillwater.
Sure.
At Gallagher Hall. I see him across the arena at Lloyd Noble, and I was a kind of an interview broadcaster with KSPI back then in Stillwater. So I walk across the arena, and I walked up 7 or 8 rows to where a seat is, and I stuck my right hand out, and I said, Coach, my name's David Garrett. And he goes, hell, I know who you are. You're the guy that interrupted me pissing in Stillwater back during football season.
Right.
And I said, yeah, that's me. And he goes, let me ask you something. Why aren't you going to school at Oklahoma? And I said, well, Oklahoma State has a better broadcast department. And he said, David, Oklahoma University has a award-winning, world-class journalism department. I said, yes, and I'm aware of that. However, I don't want to be a journalist. I want to be a broadcaster. I want to be TV cameras and microphones and talent. I don't want to be ask the correct question and this is the way you frame and you know that you learn ethics no matter what. But he said, yeah, but you still could probably be successful if you came to school here. And I said, yeah, I know, but I got a great deal in Stillwater. And he said, well, what if I bought your books and paid your tuition? Would you go to school here? And he said, and you just help me around the office. And I thought, well, he's asking me to be a manager, team manager. Yeah. And right there at age 19, on a snowy night in Norman, Oklahoma, I turned Barry Switzer down for a scholarship.
Wow.
And I could, because Randy Renner had left Stillwater then, and that gave me all the pioneers, football, boys and girls basketball, Stillwater Pioneer baseball, 30 games of Oklahoma State baseball, and 55 games of American Legion baseball in the summer.
Sure.
And that's 170 broadcasts a year at age 19, 20, 21, 22. You know this.
Yeah.
If you get that kind of practice in at that age, you're going to be pretty good. That or you're going to find out you're no good and you'll stay out of it.
Sure.
So that's where I sharpened my skills. So anyway, I turned him down for that scholarship. But I tell students, and you now in this interview or others, that's when I won the Cowboy job. It wasn't that I was in the right place at the right time at age 35 and got it. I won it because I won his trust and his loyalty at age 19.
That's a great story. Wow. That's pretty impressive.
The best part about that story is it's 100% true.
Sure.
No embellishments. I've added no filler or any. In fact, I've kind of toned it down from some of the color that was involved in those happenings.
Yeah.
And I've got other stuff with Coach Switzer too, but that's really when I stepped in the right situation by just saying thank you to somebody. And that's what I would encourage many people to do. Encourage those, build other people up that you talk to. They might help you someday.
Well, I don't know if you know this about me. I actually founded a mentoring program about 8 years ago, and that's one of the things that I talk about is investing in the people around you. And where you never know. I have a friend of mine one time said, you know, the first time you meet somebody may also be the last time you meet somebody, so you always handle it with grace. So that's really, that's a great story to attest to that, because it what definitely goes around comes around, and in your case, it definitely helped you down the line.
I totally agree with what you just said, and I didn't find this out till I was in my late 40s or early 50s. But really, our purpose here in life is to serve others.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to be the most famous.
Yep.
And so it is. It really. And I didn't know that until I had daughters.
Sure.
And I didn't know that until I married into a family that is unconditional in their love. And so that's why I'm doing this interview. That's why I do. We're here to build other people up, help out others. It isn't, and in the meantime, we get benefit from it.
Sure.
So, but I didn't know that the first 40 years of living. And certainly didn't know that going through what I would call my famous years.
Well, I mean, the great thing about our lives is no matter what direction we go, we can always turn back and go the other way, or we can turn direction. So that's pretty cool, and that's a great story to tell. Yep. So we're getting close to the end of our hour. Probably I just want to ask you your favorite Dallas Cowboy moment as an announcer.
Somebody asked me that in the last couple of weeks, and I think back, calling the Super Bowl was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that Super Bowl win for Dallas over Pittsburgh was not a good game.
No, it wasn't.
It just really wasn't a good football game. There were too many turnovers and missed opportunities, and really that probably benefited and helped Dallas win. Now, they were going to win anyway. But,
sure.
So it isn't the Super Bowl broadcast. It might have been the NFC Championship 2 weeks earlier against Green Bay. That might be my finest play-by-play. And that was the game where you realize, holy crap, we're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so that's more of a prize moment than actually that week is so difficult and the players are so disheveled and not available and they're pulled in every direction. Mm-hmm. They're either partying or they're working real hard to try to win a ball game on Saturday. So that week was hell week. It just wasn't. It was a hard, difficult week to get ready for a ball game because you couldn't have any access to anybody. And then you do the game as kind of a waiting to exhale. So I think my finest moment, though, was earlier that season. You got to understand, when I took the Cowboys job, there wasn't any Dallas fan that wanted David Garrett to be the next voice of the Cowboys. They wanted Brad Sham back,
sure.
And they wanted Brad and Barry to get along, and they didn't really like Barry, and so on and so forth. So, in the play-by-play booth, I got to look at my watch and make sure I don't take you over time.
We do.
Play-by-play booth, Dale Hansen, who was my color analyst, told me early in the preseason, it might not have been the first preseason broadcast, but it was certainly before the second one. Somewhere in the preseason, he said, "You got to know that I don't like you getting this job."
Yeah.
And I said, I understand that, Dale, but you got to know that I've got the job and that I'm going to do everything I can to be outstanding at it, whether you like it or not. You guys just have to deal with it. So Dale kind of like, well, okay, well, you might be, at least you're honest.
Yeah.
And so we matriculate through the season, and we're in Philadelphia on the 4th and 1 from the 29 game. The Switzer goes for it twice. One time it was stopped by a timeout, and the second time that they weren't successful, they lose that game to Philly.
Sure.
And they really knocked themselves out of the number 1 seed until the 49ers gave it back to them by losing in Atlanta a couple weeks later. Well, anyway, in that game, it was so cold. How cold was it? It was one of those tongues stuck to light pole games.
Wonderful life.
It was so cold. And at
Christmas story.
Emmett runs it load left on first time 4th and inches from the 29. And Switzer went for it because he was going to punt into about a 40-mile-per-hour wind, and they're going to get beat by field goal anyway. So he's trying to win the ball game right there by just getting the 4th down. The game's over. So he runs Emmett, and Emmett gets stuffed, timeout's called. They go through it again. Switzer tells later that I wanted to run the same play again because I wanted to show the players I had confidence in them. Meanwhile, the players are like, why didn't you bootleg to the right and easily get a first down?
Mm-hmm.
So in that play, I'm saying 4th and 1, second chance, left hash mark, handoff. Smith, stuffed, same play, same direction, same result.
I remember.
And Hanson punches me in the bicep. And I thought, crap, what did I do? But he's giving me a thumbs up and laughing. And what I understood from his actions was he was acknowledging you really are trying just to do a really good play-by-play job. Because I didn't sugarcoat it.
Sure.
It was disgusting that they didn't make it on that second chance.
Right.
And so I think back to everything that's happened in my career when I'm asked about what's your favorite Dallas Cowboys moment. It was that moment in a horrible situation for the team that was a reckoning for you hired a pretty decent play-by-play guy. Maybe not the best, and most certainly not loved, but the guy you hired didn't suck.
Yeah.
And so it was that moment.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, not that it's any consolation to you, you were loved by this guy. So if there was one of me, there's several of me out there. So,
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah,
I truly am.
So we do, I do like to keep it to an hour. But the good thing about doing a podcast is I can go as long or as short as I want to go. So it is my show. So we do have a couple extra minutes.
A few more minutes.
Yep.
Sure.
So how do you feel about the new coach in Dallas, Mike McCarthy?
Well, he's a big-time get, and you need a coach in Dallas that has coached in a Super Bowl, has head coached in a Super Bowl, has head coached and won a Super Bowl, and he is that guy. And he's not too old.
Yeah.
So you're not bringing in a curmudgeon to try to talk to kids these days.
Sure.
You're bringing in somebody that's got credentials. And so I think it was a terrific hire by Jerry Jones. And, forget what you're reading about Dak Prescott right now. Dude will play for Dallas this year. He'll sign a contract that makes him the richest quarterback in NFL history until the next NFL quarterback contract comes up. And they'll be in good shape this year to advance. So McCarthy will have almost all bullets available in the gun he's going to use to get into that season. I like the hire. It reminds me a little bit when Jerry Jones said that he had to hire Bill Parcells because he had lost all of his equity earned by his previous Super Bowls, and he had to have somebody that keeps the fire burning the way. And Parcells was a good coach, but he couldn't get him to the promised land.
No,
McCarthy, I think can. I think he's not the best coach to ever coach the game, but I think that he got crossways with Aaron Rodgers and the management and Green Bay, and they ran him off, and so I think Dallas got a good coach.
Well, if you listen to what he says, he's learned from it, and he's a better coach from it, and he's been studying the game since he left. I will tell you that I was never a fan of Jason Garrett. I gave him benefit of the doubt the first few years, but the thing I could never get over is his game management decisions. In my opinion, they were horrible. If it hadn't been for Romo at times, I think they would have lost a whole lot more games because I think he took over the game when it seemed like that Jason Garrett had, lights in his eyes or something, but I might be totally wrong. I'm just a fan.
Well, when Jason would speak when he was asked a hard question, he would always speak like, you don't know as much as I know. Mm-hmm. And if you want to know as much as I know in the National Football League, and when you're playing and you've got players in the National Football League, you got to know that we know what we're doing, and we're doing the best we can in the National Football League. And I said that 4 times or 3 on purpose because when he's saying that, in broadcasting, he's crutching.
Yeah. Which
means he's using some people say, hear me or feel me, or you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Or some people, they're crutching to think of what the next thing is they want to say.
Sure.
So every time I heard him say in the National Football League, I'm thinking, okay, you're not really answering the question, and you're thinking of verbiage to get you sideways out of this question ask. I thought Jason always thought that he was too stuck in his ways.
Yeah.
And it ended up costing him the job. But he earned what he got. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he should have been the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Jerry paid him to be a top assistant and wanted him to be eventually. But he had a shot. He probably 3, maybe 5 years too many shots. But,
yeah, maybe.
But he had a shot.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, I certainly appreciate you joining us tonight. Hopefully, maybe sometime in the future, we can get together one-on-one and do this show both of us in front of a camera if you ever have the time for it. But
sure, let me know.
You've certainly been a favorite of mine. I know there are several people listening tonight who are big Dallas Cowboy fans. When I told them you were on tonight, it's like, I'm listening. So,
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the listeners too. And this was fun, and I'd be happy to do it whenever you ask.
All right, folks, it's been Dave Garrett, the former play-by-play guy of the Dallas Cowboys, and now the pregame host of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who says we're going to have a season here in a few years. Dave, or in a few months, or less than a month, hopefully. Sure appreciate you joining us tonight. You have a good night, sir.
Thank you. Best to you, and look forward to our next talk.
Absolutely. Dave Garrett on the show with us, and we certainly appreciate him joining in. If you are listening to us for the first time, we definitely have our own Facebook channel. We want you to listen to us on Faithletic, the podcast, or you can also listen in on our YouTube channel. So you can go actually to Faithletic, the podcast. You can punch up Faithletic, dial it in, punch it in, text it in, whatever you usually do to get there. And when you see the subscribe button, you can go in there and subscribe to it. And then if you put the little bell, you can actually be alerted every time we upload a broadcast. And 29 of the episodes, I believe, have been loaded. This is our 30th or 31st. I think last week was the 30th. This week is the 31st, and we had you want to go back if you're joining us late, we had an Eddie Sutton tribute on the first half of the show, and then we talked to the legendary play-by-play guy, Dave Garrett. He was on to talk about the Thunder, the Dallas Cowboys, and also Eddie Sutton. So if you're joining us for the first time, catch us next week. My general co-host is KC Kyle Cook. He's out on a personal commitment, but hopefully he'll be back with us next week. So at 8 o'clock next week, hope you join us. This has been Faithletic, the podcast. Have a good night.